Welcome to this episode of Creators Are Brands, the show that explores how creators are building businesses online. This show is part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. And today, this conversation is with someone who is also part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, Clouse. He is one of my favorite creator educators, a phrase that he coined and we discuss further on this show. He's built a successful podcast called Creative Elements, one that I actually listen to the most. He has a lucrative newsletter called Creator Science and a membership community that helps people like you become professional creators. This year, his one-person media company is on pace to bring in over $300,000. And in this show, we talk about where you should be starting as a creator, why you should be building a creative platform and what that is, why he's building a video-first podcast, the most valuable asset you can build as a creator, what platform drives the most of his sales, why you should plan for ads at the beginning when you launch your podcast, what ad inventory actually means, and his production process for recording his podcast. All right, without me blabbing on anymore, let's get into the conversation. Welcome to the show. I'm so stoked to have you on. I think you've done such an amazing job of building like the prototype creative platform, as you call it, right?
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's fun because I get to try a bunch of things, but it's also like so frustrating because I feel like I have to try all the things, as opposed to being like, I'm going to just do this one thing really well. Like I feel like I need to have a working knowledge of all different platforms and all different strategies so I can explore it with guests on the show and write about it and talk about it. So I've definitely done a lot of expansion for a very small team of me.
Are you the team?
I have a video editor named Connor. He's fantastic. I have an audio engineer named Nathan. He's also fantastic. And that's pretty much it. I mostly work through partnerships otherwise. So for most of the business, outside of the podcast and the YouTube channel, it's just me back behind the keys. So it's a lot.
That's why I admire your brand so much, because it's you go to your website, you see the quality of the YouTube channel, of the podcast, and the YouTube show. It's kind of the same thing. We'll talk more about that. But then also your thorough catalog of courses and products and membership and everything. So as someone that is new, that is like building an audience, and they kind of look at what you've built, and with the tagline, I help people become professional creators, where should they get started?
I think the first thing you need to figure out is, what is your unique message? And the thing I refer to all the time is Wes Cow. She's the co-founder of Maven. She started Alt MBA with Seth Godin. She has this incredible blog post called Spiky Point of View. And the idea of a spiky point of view is something that you believe that not necessarily everyone else believes. She says it's at the intersection of surprising and true. And that's like such an incredible cornerstone for any creator to figure out, what is my unique viewpoint that gives people a reason to pay attention? And it can be, kind of a flavor on top of something that other people have talked about in some ways, but you got to figure out like, why should people follow you? If you're just imitating somebody else, then they're going to figure that out and follow the person that you're kind of modeling after and imitating. You need to have something that is uniquely you, and it should probably be a viewpoint that you can expand on and build all kinds of IP around and frameworks and be known for that thing. A lot of people kind of create mindlessly or without any direction, and they're like, okay, well, this person just did a tweet thread about mental models. I guess I'll do that now. And then they're like in that corner, and then they decide, well, maybe I'll actually just like put a thread out about this other thing over here, and they don't stand for anything. They don't have a consistent viewpoint on something. And you got to have that, because that's like the bedrock of what you build upon.
You talk on the website about building a creative platform instead of a personal brand. And I'm with you on that. You talk a little bit about just like, it's kind of cringy to say personal brand, but like, what people are trying to communicate with that. So tell me, in your mind, like why a creative platform is a better positioning than a than a personal brand, and what really is a creative platform?
I think that the idea of a creative platform is a little bit broader and more inclusive, because there are a lot of people who are creators and maybe even solo creators who aren't building behind their name either. You know, like they're even my newsletter, Creator Science. I would say that's my creative platform.
Yep.
Even though my name is closely associated with it, a lot of people that read that obviously know that I'm the writer of it. That is the platform that I'm building as a creator. And so your creative platform just embodies all of the places you exist online. It's everything the light touches, that is your kingdom. That is your creative platform. Whether it's your blog, your podcast, your newsletter, your digital products, anything that you're making, I would bucket that all under what is this platform that you're building for yourself. And it can still be behind your name. I just like the idea of a creative platform.
Yep. And it's kind of what I'm doing myself, actually, with bonus footage. That was sort of my thinking. I think you had a better way of articulating that, of like intuitively, like what I was sort of doing with. But I was like, this is going to be like a place to just throw my ideas for this type of person, and I'm going to see what comes of it. Now, I had a bunch of experience, working as a freelancer, having like building specific knowledge as like someone that was trying to monetize my ideas over the years, and then through that I started to develop like my opinions on it, my perspective, my and ways to share that. Do you think, I'm curious, like, because I look at your membership and sort of like the positioning of helping people become professional creators. When someone comes into your world, at what phase in that like journey is like the person that you're talking to? Is it someone that is starting from scratch, or is it maybe they have an audience and they really don't know what to do with it?
Generally, it's somebody that's publishing consistently somewhere.
Already.
And they have some sense of at least the direction they're going, if they haven't like really dialed in the messaging and positioning of it yet. Earlier than that, there's not like a ton of help I can give other than like start publishing. Like you need to find your message and what you're trying to help people in this world do and who those people are. But mostly I try to help people who are in the process of making things and they're feeling like, man, I'm putting a lot of effort into this and it's not quite paying off yet. That's where people tend to enter my world.
So right now, would you say your main content is your podcast, or would it be the newsletter? Like, where's your main focus right now as far as how you're building your audience?
It's split pretty much down the middle. I mean, the podcast is probably my largest property. Not really. I feel like my newsletter is probably my largest property. And even then, like maybe Twitter is the largest property.
Yeah.
So it's really split between, I would say, Twitter, my email list, and the podcast. And now the podcast is also audio and video. So YouTube has grown the total audience of the show quite a bit because it's just a lot more discoverable. And it's kind of crazy just to pull up the analytics on YouTube. And even though my best videos, they're at like 4,000 views, that's still pretty crazy. That's 4,000 views. That's like, it's not 4,000 downloads, because we know in the podcast world, like downloads and listens are not the same thing. Often phones will download an episode and that person doesn't listen to it at all. On YouTube, views are much closer. Like this person actually clicked play.
Yep.
And that's huge. Like that grew the show immensely just out of the gate, because there is so much natural discovery on YouTube. So right now, I would say probably emails where I put most of my, like, I want all roads to lead to email. I want everybody to be on the email list. Even though we're going to prioritize YouTube a lot in December and all through 2023, a lot of that effort will be driving viewers to email.
Why?
Because it's like an insurance policy to me. Like it's the way that I can reliably communicate with the people that I have successfully gotten into my world somehow.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got excited.
I just know that in email, my message is going to get into your inbox if you signed up for it.
Yep.
It's still your choice as to whether you open that and read it, but that's not true of any other platform. Like usually any other platform, you put something out there, it might, get into somebody's feed, even if it's a subscriber feed, but email reliably like lands in people's inboxes. It's their choice whether they want to open it or whether they want to continue receiving it, but there's no other third-party interference between me and that person. And so that's that's an asset that is just like the most valuable thing you could have as a creator.
And would you find I had a bunch of questions lined up, but I have some other ones that are popping up as we're talking. Would you say the email? So you have a bunch of once people are on your email list, when you think about monetization, is that where most of the conversions are made, or is it through direct links people finding in the YouTube description or your podcast descriptions?
I don't think there's that much of conversion to sales happening on audio or video yet.
Okay.
To me,
Yeah.
like all of my sales come from email or Twitter.
Okay.
And I've been surprised how effective Twitter has been this year, but it's almost always been historically email. And that will either be like a dedicated email to say, hey, here's a thing that I'm doing and here's how you can buy it, or it'll be a part of my regular weekly newsletter that I put out, actually twice a weekly newsletter. So it's just really effective. It's just so much easier to go from email, written copy with a link to a page that lets you purchase something than audio. It's so hard to convert anything in audio.
Yeah. And especially with audio, people are not really primed in like buying like mentality. They're like, my wife is literally upstairs right now. She's making Brussels sprouts in a new air fryer. And she's got a podcast on. She, like, if someone went to sell something to her right now, she's not like going in and clicking it. No, it's in the background as she's doing something else. But when you're on email, you're kind of like, you got the mouse ready.
Yeah,
you know?
your hands are on the keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. And I mean, I've been trying. I do have a lot of people who join my membership community of the lab, and they will talk about how long they've been listening to the show. So it does feel like there is a whole ecosystem around my creative platform, and people who listen to the show generally end up on email, or people who are in email generally listen to the show. So now they're in both these places. And so they're getting touch points about some of the things that I'm doing and some of the opportunities to them in stereo, you know, in both of those places. But typically I see a lot more conversion in email and Twitter than I do audio or video.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out YouTube conversion at all.
Let's say someone has built an audience up. They have around 1,500 email subscribers. They have some sort of platform where they create content, whether it's TikTok or Twitter and they're thinking about the next, like, having some sort of money come in return of this content that they're creating. Where do they start now? Would you say it's like, because I know I saw your breakdown of all of your revenue streams. Would it be affiliates first? Would it be start playing around with a freebie, start trying to sell ads? Like, where would you direct someone?
It really, I mean, the answer to like everything is it depends, right?
Yeah.
But if I were to pick one
I
thing,
want one thing.
at that size, advertising probably isn't a great option.
Yep.
Affiliate's a decent option, but depends on the product. And it's not going to be like super meaningful, and also you don't have full control over that. Like, there are so many people who just printed money being a Bluehost affiliate that like that will degrade over time, or Bluehost could just be like, no, actually we're not going to even have an affiliate program anymore. So to me, though, the win is having your own product, probably digital, because then it's like infinitely scalable. And, you know, you can sell somebody else's product, or you can sell your own product. The answer, the difference is you can have 100% revenue from that, or you can get, you know, a whatever percent commission on it. So I think you should sell your own product. I think it should probably be a digital product of some kind. And that's where I would start, because that is where you can build the biggest, most scalable business over time. Like, that becomes an asset you can leverage over and over and over again.
So let's say, like, okay, but how do I make a digital product? What platform do I use? How long should it be? What, you know, how do you make those little decisions? And if you have, if that's sign up to Creative Elements first, and I think we should plug that, because I get a lot of the useful information from there that I'm applying to my own creative brand. But like, curious, like, what would you direct them yourself?
I should take one quick step back.
Okay.
Most of the time when I'm speaking to my audience and giving advice, it comes through the lens of a creator who is what I call a creator educator. I think that there are...
I love that term. I saw you use that, and I stole it. I started using it.
All good. I think that there's basically two camps. You can think of it as a Venn diagram. You have creator educators, who are people who are literally creating content for the purpose of informing people doing, a transfer of knowledge to other people. And then you have creator entertainers that are on the more like extreme Mr. Beast side where it's like, I just want to give you an enjoyable experience.
Yes.
So when I talk about what products did you build a digital product, that makes a lot of sense for a creator educator. For someone who's just, kind of building an influencer style business around their personality, and they're not specifically trying to teach a specific avatar type of person, a certain thing, that's a little bit harder to do a digital product.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I forgot to put that on my questions. But I've talked about that for a minute. The idea that like people use the word creator as this like broad term.
Oh my gosh, it's huge.
Just to talk, I'm like that's like saying athlete. Like a pickleball player is very different than an NFL football player. It's like the way you train, the way the equipment, everything that goes into that process. And so it's going to be different teaching styles, different products, and like they can attach to their brand.
Yeah, if you're a streamer, digital products might not be the way to go.
Exactly. So I like creator educator. Let's assume that is the audience that is listening. They teach. They help people get from A to B. They have specific knowledge. They have a passion around this subject. Get that? I'm sure you get that question all the time. A lot of people are like, when can I start selling a digital product? I'm like, listen, you can always be in the back of your mind, kind of testing it. Testing concepts. Like that's what you use your tweets for. I remember I saw someone say like the tweet becomes the blog post becomes the book becomes the movie, and like that's how you can test that in your own way as a creator educator.
Yeah, totally. I think, no matter how big your audience is, you want to get so tapped in to who they are and why they're paying attention to you that it should become pretty obvious what the product is. Like they're paying attention to you for some reason. You're doing some job for them in their life, and they're trying to glean something. So what is that? If you do a good job of attracting an audience with your content, you just got to ask and listen and pay attention to what they're looking for. And then whatever their problem is, how can you construct a solution to that? And maybe it's a digital product, maybe it's something entirely different. Maybe it's a physical product, maybe it's a journal, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a membership community. You just have to kind of get tapped into that. And you don't need a ton of people in the beginning. Make the thing, go back to somebody who told you that they needed a solution to some problem. Say, I made this for you. Can you actually just go through this and tell me if it helps you?
Yep.
And it's just product development. My background before I was in the creator world was startups and specifically product. So to me, a lot of these things are just like intuitive product processes, which I realize a lot of people haven't gone through. Like the idea is you have a target customer, they have a problem, you're creating a solution to that problem that solves it and makes them happy. And in a lot of our world, people are trying to learn some skill or develop some competency or achieve some outcome. And so we're coming in and saying, I know the outcome you're trying to achieve. I know the problem you're trying to solve. This course will help you do that. This template will give you a head start on that. This membership community will help you learn how to do this. That's what we're trying to develop here. And that exists in all kinds of different, verticals, industries, niches. People are trying to level up all the time. My customers are people who are trying to grow and improve, in my case, as creators. And in other people's cases, all kinds of things, like Miss Excel on TikTok. She's on TikTok, she's doing her dance thing, but like ultimately, her people are trying to learn how to use Excel really well.
Yep.
So she built an Excel course to help them do that. There's opportunities like that for you. You just have to listen. And if you don't have anyone to listen to, you also don't have anybody to sell to. So you need to like spend time developing a reputation and an audience around your platform.
Now, with the podcast, I'd love to go into some specific questions about how you do your show, how you approach your show to help improve mine.
Sure.
So I can be on your level. And then two, to help any listeners that are also building a podcast.
Sure.
I have some technical questions and then questions around like, monetization and just like the overall approach.
Okay, maybe.
Cool. So one, what should I tell my guests to make sure that their audio is great on their end?
You won't be able to do this very well. What I try to do is I will tell people ahead of time, ideally, you have an external microphone. If you don't have an external microphone, ideally you have corded like Apple headphones to the microphone. If you
Yeah.
don't have that, we'll probably use your built-in microphone, and Bluetooth anything is like a last case scenario.
Yeah.
But generally what like people probably don't read that message, so they show up on the show, and it's my job before we hit record to like do my best to get the best audio possible from what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Like as soon as somebody connects, I'm like, okay, what am I hearing? I'm hearing a lot of background noise, but it looks like they have a microphone. Let's talk about turning the gain down. Or, okay, I see a microphone, but it definitely doesn't sound like it's coming from a microphone. So let's make sure they've chosen the right audio source.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you're using corded headphones, which is great, but you have long hair and it's rubbing on that a lot. So
Yeah.
let's call that out.
Well,
it's a before recording thing.
Okay, cool. And just kind of like over time, you pick up the little things that you're seeing along the way.
Yeah.
Oh, the dishwasher. I'm hearing that clang in the
Yeah.
background. We got to close the door to the kitchen.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is try to just nudge in that direction. And ultimately, like actually the built-in microphones in people's machines, their hardware is usually pretty good. It's like a better option than Bluetooth headphones most of the time, because the microphones in that just aren't very strong. It's easier, especially if you're working with an audio engineer, to clean up the built-in microphone audio. And you have about
on the like a MacBook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a few minutes. Like I book a 60-minute slot with people, and I want to get the most out of 60 minutes as I can on recording, right? But I want to make sure that we start with some rapport, and we have good audio, we have good video. So it's like a 5-minute exercise in me trying to optimize for the best audio and video while also not being really off-putting about like, hey, let's fix these things.
Like judging them. Hey, can you move over there? Can you
Yeah,
talk lower?
That would be such a jarring experience just to log on and be like, okay, this is messed up. Like you've got to do these things. It's always to get on and I say, hey, great to see you, Tom. How you doing? How's your day going? And they're like, oh, great. How's it going? How do I sound? And I'll say, okay, well, you actually sound like, I see a microphone, but it doesn't look like that's what I'm getting the audio from.
Yeah.
So it's trying to warm them up and get this set up. So it's like, we're a team, and it's not, you're failing me. It's like, let's see if we can do something about this.
Yeah. And the good thing about the sort of the lane that you and I have picked here is that we're having conversations with people that are creators that that kind of have an idea of how, how to be doing these shows.
Yeah, usually people show up just with phenomenal things. I remember my first episode of Creative Elements was with Seth Godin, and he showed up in a sound booth, a full dedicated single person sound booth with a microphone, and I was like in my tiny studio apartment. It's like I gotta level this stuff up.
Yeah. Hey, but like that's the norm now, Okay, so you have a long tweet about breaking down lessons you've learned as you built your podcast, and one of them said plan for ads from the beginning when you're starting the show. What does that mean?
It means that there aren't many people that listen to podcasts and think, man, I wish there were more ads. Like it's not your favorite part of the listening experience.
Yeah.
What I see a lot of shows do is they'll start with no ads because they have no advertisers. And then as the show gets successful, now they start putting ads in, and listeners are sensitive to the difference. And they think, oh, there's ads in this now. I hate this. So what I encourage people to do is assume you will have ads one day, hopefully soon. Build the show from the beginning to accommodate that and to have those little ad breaks inside of it so that listeners are already used to taking these little breaks. So it's not a change. It's not like a big negative shift when you start rolling them out. And that could just be promoting your own newsletter, promoting a product that you have, or cross-promoting with another show. Something that is an advertisement for something else. It's not the actual show content. I would have those built in from the very beginning.
That's a wonderful point. What's crazy too about, because a couple things here. I did that early on. I went another version of the podcast, and I just kind of made a joke about it. I was like, "This show is sponsored by Going on a Walk." Like, go on a walk today, just
That's hilarious.
Like it just talked about the benefits of going on a stroll, and the people enjoyed it. And then for this show, when I started getting, there is something. Audio listeners are more trained for just having ads involved in the shows. And as a creator, I find that it is the best way to do ads. Like, even though like it is a little annoying, like people don't love them, But if there's one format, the podcast, it almost legitimate. It like makes it sound legitimate. Oh, someone's paying them. It must be an important show.
I think that people have really come to tolerate that type of thing more. I think people understand that
They
an
need
ad
to do
in the show means that the show is being supported financially.
Yeah.
But I also do think that creators are also getting more and more strict on the type of things they accept. And to be honest, like I have ads in my newsletter, and that is managed by the ConvertKit sponsor network, which has been wonderful. And they do ask.
Is that an ad?
That's not an ad.
Oh, I can make. All right, let me know.
They do allow me like editorial control over who I allow to advertise. And generally, like if it's aligned and if I think it's a good product, I'm down with it. And what I've realized recently in talking to people in my audience, they really take my recommendations on those ads seriously, like to a degree that I didn't think they would.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get more and more critical over the ad copy, who the advertiser is, because I kind of assumed people would realize this is a paid thing, and Jay accepts it as a paid thing. He's not necessarily endorsing it, but I think just by virtue of having it in there, there's a soft endorsement. Stronger, though, than I expected.
And every time you give an answer, I have like 5 questions, 5 ways that I could go with it. Let's talk about just the idea, because we had a phone call before the first time that we met, and you used the phrase ad inventory. And this is something that I've heard previously. I want to say, like, I don't entirely, like, I pretended like I knew what it meant. I like, what does it mean? Like, what is an ad inventory spot, like, as a creator? Like, how do you like? I intuitively, I think I have an idea, but I'm curious. The audience might, be wondering the same thing.
Let me continue with the newsletter example, because I think it's a little bit easier to visualize. So I write two newsletters per week.
Yep.
And each of those newsletters, I allow for 1 paid ad. So in a typical week, my ad inventory in my newsletters is 2.
Okay.
I have 2 units of ad space that I'm willing to sell. Same is true of my podcast. Podcast releases once a week in audio. There are 10 ad units. 2 of those are post-roll, so most people never hear it. So your ad inventory is just looking at either how many placements are available, or in a podcast game, like at the point where I am now, it's not about discrete units per episode because they're not baked into the audio. They're dynamically placed. I sell ads based on impressions. So my ad inventory in the podcasting world is based on impressions and downloads as opposed to placements.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like if I promise somebody that they're going to get 50,000 impressions on their ad, as soon as that ad is seen 50,000 times, heard 50,000 times, that unit disappears, and that space in the same podcast episode could go to a new advertiser.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense. So is there other examples of that? Like, for example, could a link in, like, how do you communicate your ad inventory to people? Could your link in bio be one? Could, the description links be part of the ad inventory?
It could. Like, you're basically looking at, it's all supply and demand. You have to have some sort of management of your ad inventory so you know what's available and when. But there's got to be some level of scarcity to it. So, in podcast world, I'm only going to do a certain number of impressions per month, per year, however often. So I can only sell that number of impressions. Or in the newsletter example, I only have 2 newsletters a week. That's 2 ad spots. So I can only sell 2 ad spots per week. That's what makes the thing valuable, is that there's limited supply. And you could do that with anything else. You could say, like, I will allow for 1 advertiser in my link in bio page once a month, and I swap that out once a month. So the scarcity is there's only 1 of those per month. YouTube is a little bit different. I haven't figured out the YouTube ad model that I'm happy with quite yet, because that's all baked in. So it's hard for me to price that, because impressions can be wildly different.
Yeah.
Based on things that I don't even understand or predict. Because if I knew how to make my YouTube videos have more impressions every single week, I would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. No, you have to be a little bit more crafty with the YouTube, and that's part of like becoming a professional creator is just knowing these different areas like that you're providing value to people and how you're
Yeah.
integrating it into your brand.
I think generally people do YouTube in like two stages. Like early on, they'll basically do the baked in version to say it costs this much to put a video into or an ad into one of my videos, and I'm selling you placement in one of my videos. But I think as they grow and scale, I think they try and predict a certain level of impressions or promise a base level of impressions, and then anything on top of that is gravy. Anything below that, they have what's called a make good, where they'll figure out some way to get more impressions, whether that's like mentioning you in some other video or something else. So I don't know. I haven't cracked that yet.
Okay.
You know, YouTube itself has a monetization feature, so that's probably where I'll start. But there's definitely opportunity for advertising directly in the show. I just haven't figured it out yet.
And how much could you share how much you charge for a newsletter ad for one of those inventory spots?
Right now, it comes out to be about $600 per issue.
Okay.
And that is loosely based on a CPM, which would be...
Yeah. And that's I saw ConvertKit rolling out that program. So they help you find the sponsors right through their platform that you're already paying for.
It's about a $40 CPM, a little bit higher than a $40 CPM, which is pretty common. I think our typical podcast CPM is about 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you enjoying that convert? Because I saw that like as I'm building my newsletter, I was trying to look at different platforms, and that was one of the elements that I thought would be enticing about going with ConvertKit.
It's great. They do have some general guidelines that you have to fall within to be on the network. Like I think they still have a minimum requirement of 10,000 subscribers to pull you onto the network right now as they're growing. I'm sure that will go down and down and down as they scale all the operations and stuff. It's been great for me because it very closely mirrors my podcast advertising process, which is someone else is responsible for selling the ads. They get a percentage of what they sell, and I just, plug it in.
Yep.
And that's really nice because I don't have to do the hunting or the communication or the reporting. It's just here's the creative, and you put it in, and I collect my fee, and we move on. And as a solo creator, those are the type of relationships I want to build more of, even though I'm, quote unquote, leaving money on the table. To me, that's worth it because it's saving a lot of space for me and not requiring that I hire somebody to manage that.
Exactly. Dealing with, someone else. I find so many of these platforms, they're, especially one like that is built by a creator, like they're just making it. It's never been easier to build a creative platform and make money online. Now, back to the podcast, I have to say, like, I've experimented with shorts, with YouTube, with tweeting. The podcast format is one of my favorites. And I'm curious, from your end, what is something that you wish you knew when you first started the podcast to now that you wish you knew that would have made the process a bit more seamless for you?
Make the process more seamless? I wish what I would have done is start in video. Is like the
Start
real
video.
Answer. Is I wish I would have started on YouTube, because a podcast is not new audience acquisition. You don't get new audience because you have a podcast, not in a meaningful way, not for most people. A podcast is like a relationship accelerant, like a trust accelerant. If people are already in your world, if they're already like in the realm of your creative platform and you have a podcast and they start listening to it, they're going to develop a much deeper relationship with you. But you don't get a lot of new audience acquisition in audio. In video, that's not true because there's so much natural discovery on YouTube and so much time being spent there. So I started audio only, and then to go to a video process, I had to build the production process from the ground up. Like we blew up the whole thing and changed the way we did everything because you have to go video first because that's where the majority of the editing is. And then you pull the audio out and put that up on the feed as an audio only thing. So much harder to go in the opposite because I was editing the audio myself. And if I were to edit the audio myself the way I was and then try to attach that to video or, try to have someone edit the video to match that audio afterwards, it would be a nightmare. So I had to go video first. And also, it's a different game. Like YouTube's a totally different game than podcasting. In audio, I really took an intentional effort to make the listening experience feel cozy is how I would describe it. And like the way that actually manifests as you're editing audio is I would increase space between sentences so that it felt like a slower, more comfortable listening pace. In video, you have Mr. Beast coming in now and say like, I took 10,000 people and I put them on an island and I'm going to give them $10,000. And like, that's what you have to do to keep attention in video, or you're going to see a huge drop off at the beginning. So we're still playing with that because like the pacing on YouTube has to be so much faster, but that doesn't make the audio product that I'm used to or really want. So it's like a process of how do we make the video product good for video and easy to make an audio product, but not make a whole separate product for audio off the back of it. And it's been a challenge. I think we're getting better. This newest episode I put out with Jake Thomas, Connor did the intro to a higher degree than he's ever done before, and it is just gorgeous, beautiful, amazing. And I think we're going to do more of that.
All right, so tell me, and that's sort of where I was getting at, the production process. So you have a team, you have an editor, a video editor, and an audio editor. What is like if you were to plan out like 1 week of producing the show, is it are you recording 2 or 3 episodes and batch recording in one day? The audio goes over like this. Can you kind of give a high level view of the whole process?
Yeah, I try to get ahead on interviews because if I have the interviews done, then I have all the raw materials I need to finish producing an episode.
Yep.
So I will typically record multiple episodes per week. And what I'm trying to actually do now is have on weeks and off weeks where like I will have 1 week where I'll have 2 to 4 interviews and then the next week none. And then the next week 2 to 4 interviews and the next week none. And so you're getting enough like dry powder that you always have something to turn into an episode, because when you have that type of runway in terms of just raw materials, then you can do more outreach to more busy, difficult to reach guests. And even if they have to schedule out months from now, you're not worried about filling your calendar up until that point. You've got plenty of dry powder there. So that's the first step, is just getting really far ahead on interviews themselves. And then we take like one episode at a time. I script it, I record the voiceover. Connor takes that as additional raw material and does like a full video edit, adding B-roll and sound design and things like that. Once he finishes the edit and video, he'll export the audio tracks from the video editor, and my sound engineer will make the audio track sound even more crispy, and then he'll put that back on.
And are your team-wise, are they full-time or are they contract position? Okay.
They're both contract. The audio engineer doesn't have like a ton of time on him. He basically just like puts it through the presets for me and then makes the guest sound good. And it doesn't take him like an hour to do the full mix on it. And my video editor, he's not full-time, quote unquote, but I'm trying to buy like all of his time.
Yep. Yeah. And that's an intensive job, the video editing aspect of a video show. And now with the pre-production of the show, what goes into your process for getting the questions or building the outline? Is it questions that you're it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or is it just more of an outline of bullets that you want to explore?
It's kind of an outline. Like generally for my show, I want to follow an arc of when did you start, where are you now, and hit a bunch of tactical insights along the way. But I'm trying to follow their like career arc with their business. And so I need to do good enough research to get some interesting inflection points that I can find so I can bring them up if necessary. But then there's a lot of listening, to be honest. It's a lot of following my own natural curiosity. So I want to have as good of a sense as I can of their journey, just like intuitively. And then I kind of kick off the interview and follow it along, already knowing some of the beats that I want to hit. And I honestly, my preferred way of doing research is to listen to other interviews. I try to listen to one that's like very recent, and then I'll try to go back and listen to one that's a little bit earlier. but I want them also to focus a little bit on the arc, so I can just hit the highlights and then ask really tactical, specific things.
With each episode that you put out, in my mind, it's like you're able to juggle so many different things at once, and you're a team of one. How, from the community, like how much time? Like it sounds like a lot goes into just one episode each week. How much time is going into the community, and what does that look like as far as your workflow? Are you doing live group calls?
Yeah.
And another question is, how many people are in the community at this point?
We have about 160 people in the lab now, and we have a cap at 200. So we're getting close to capacity. And part of that was because I needed to guard my time, because I do put a lot of it into it. Just in answering questions in forums and DMs and things, I probably put an hour in a day. And most weeks I'll have like several live calls, whether that's an hour-long office hours, or we do these 30-minute hot seats where it's like a one-on-one coaching call, essentially with one person that the other community members can log into. So I'm probably putting, 10, 12 hours a week into the community itself. And a lot of that's in like short bits.
Do you have any help with that? Any,
no.
No, it's all you.
No. Yeah. And I mean, I try to create a culture of people helping each other for sure. But I respond to just about every post that's in there, even if other people are commenting. Like I try to respond to just about every post.
So that really is access to your world. That's a sideline view of you building your creator business and saying, hey, I'm just going to brain dump. This is everything that I've learned. How much is that for each member?
How much does it cost?
Yeah. How much does it cost? Is it a monthly thing or is it yearly?
It's annual only, and the lowest price option is $1,500 a year.
Yep.
So it's a sizable investment for people, but I did that partially as a filter because I wanted the people in there to be a little bit more advanced. So for somebody to make that investment probably means that they're bringing in a good amount of money and that feels okay to them, and that like really compensates me for the effort that I'm putting in. Like everyone that joins, I'm pumped. I'm like, this is awesome. So yeah, it's a lot of time. And like I do things in there that are explicitly like, come see how I'm doing this. Like every month I record a 30-minute video that goes through my profit and loss statement. And I'm like, here's how much money I made and from where and how much I spent and on what. And here's why I did it this way. Like it's very behind the scenes.
So if someone's listening right now and they're trying to think, am I a good fit for that or am I not? What are some qualities that would make someone a good fit for that community?
They should be, like I was saying earlier, like actively publishing. They should be committed to making this their full-time thing. They should not feel like $1,500 is going to break the bank. And if those things are true, then they're probably a good fit. I don't have like an application process, so I'm not going to rule anybody out. The price is like the biggest filter there is. Like if that feels like it's a huge investment, then it's probably too early. If that feels very comfortable and that sounds interesting, then it's probably a really good fit.
And then of the monetization processes, or monetization streams, from affiliates, digital products, memberships, royalties, consulting, sponsorships, patronage, physical products, consulting and services, those are all the ones that you broke down as your revenue streams. Which ones do you find yourself helping people with the most in the membership group?
Helping them build?
Yeah.
It's probably evenly split between digital products and memberships. There are a lot of people in there who are really excited about building their own membership community. And a lot of the reason those people join is because I've built a reputation for having a really good onboarding experience and just generally good community experience and an engaged community. So there's a lot of like double dipping in that way where it's like, I'm going to come in here and get better as a creator, but also I can see everything that you're doing through your membership and try to emulate that in my own. So there's a lot of folks like that. Even beyond that though, like there's a lot of content strategy that we talk about. So it's not even like a paid product. It's a lot of like content strategy. Yeah.
And then platform wise, are people people that are building on any platform, or does it tend to skew more towards like Twitter or audio creators? Or
I have data for this. Let me pull this up.
Man, we're going into it. Let's go.
We're going into it. Okay. So looking at the platforms people operate on, 83% of people in the lab are focused on email lists, followed by 64% are Twitter, 47% are YouTube, 41% are LinkedIn, 30% are Instagram, 30% podcast, 19% TikTok. And so obviously that's more than 100%, but it's which of these platforms are you actively trying to grow? So a lot of writers, but more video than before, like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. That is basically on par with LinkedIn and Twitter in podcasting. So after email list, it's pretty much all over the place. The one thing that we don't do very well is like Twitch, because again, it's more of a creator educator space than a creator entertainer.
Yep. Creator educator. I think that it's like I think I read that in your newsletter, you kind of broke down what a creator educator was, and I was like, that's me. Like that's what I've been trying to say, and you articulated it so well. So check out Jay's newsletter, Creator
Science letter.
Creator Science is the newsletter. The podcast is Creative Elements. One more question. You worked with Pat Flynn.
I did.
He sort of was way ahead of his time when it comes to creator educators and teaching people how to make money in this crazy digital world. What is something that you've applied to your own business that you learned working with him?
That's a good question. I think what Pat really trailblazed and did well was, like, he innovated on the income reports. Like, he was sharing exact, like, here's how much I'm making from my ebooks and here's what I'm learning. Like, it was a very honest and thorough look at his business. And then that turned into like a marketing strategy for a lot of people for a long time, where they're like, okay, let me just show you how much money I'm making, and that's going to get your attention. You're going to come in more and more and more. But it became less through the lens of being helpful and honest and transparent, and more like tactic-y for marketing. Not Pat, but people who followed in those footsteps. So I'm actually trying to like return to kind of the origin and do more of the transparent sharing and the honest sharing, and use myself as a case study through all this, because ultimately, like, my audience are creators, and I'm ahead of most of the people that are paying attention in some aspect or another. And yes, I want to show that.
Well, Jay, I appreciate it. Like I said, I admire the brand that you've built. Go check out Jay's platforms. Jay, where do we want to send people if they want to get the starter kit into your world?
Yeah, go to creatorscience.com, sign up for the newsletter. That'll open up the keys. That's the key to the kingdom. You can see everything else there, but I'm anywhere that you are. Just find Jay Clouse.